He makes me sick. That's the kind of reaction you'd expect from a fan. But when a Premier League striker says it about his own opponents, that hits different. Tony Cottee was a legend. He scored 226 league goals. He wore the England shirt. He was clinical, fast, and deadly in the box. For years, he terrorised defences across the country. But here's the thing, even legends have limits. And for Cottee, those limits had names. 5 names to be exact. These weren't just good defenders. They were the men who exposed every weakness Cottee had. They matched his pace. They read his mind. They broke his spirit. Cottee called them his most difficult opponents. But maybe that was just polite. Maybe difficulty was his way of hiding something darker. Because when you dig into his career, something becomes clear. These 5 men didn't just stop him. They haunted him. They stripped away his confidence. They made him question himself. And maybe, just maybe, they damaged his career more than anyone wants to admit. Today, we're going through each one. We're going to show you how they systematically destroyed Tony Cottee's game, how they turned his biggest strengths into nothing, how they exploited the cracks in his mentality until there was nothing left. This isn't a tribute. This is an autopsy. Let's begin. But first, you need to understand something about Tony Cottee. He wasn't just any striker. He was vulnerable, fragile even. When he signed for Everton in 1988, he became the most expensive player in British football, £2.2 million, a record fee, and he hated every second of it. Cottee admitted he didn't think he was good enough. He said he was just a very good goal scorer, never world class, never worth that kind of money, that kind of thinking. That's blood in the water for defenders. They could smell it. They could see it in his eyes. They knew that if they pushed hard enough, he'd crack. And that's exactly what happened at Anfield. Cottee got a red card for a hot-headed retaliatory lunge. He was incensed at the referee, lost control, left Rob Jones flat out in agony on the pitch. That's who Tony Cottee really was. Talented? Yes, but emotionally unstable, easy to break. And these 5 defenders? They were experts at breaking strikers. Paul McGrath was Cottee's worst nightmare. Not because he was the fastest, not because he was the strongest, but because he was always one step ahead. McGrath read the game like he had CCTV in Tony's brain. Before Cottee could even think about making a run, McGrath was already there, blocking the space, cutting the angle, making it all pointless. Cottee built his entire career on speed, on finding gaps, on exploding into space before anyone could react. That was his weapon. That was what made him dangerous. McGrath deleted it. He had this sublime talent that bordered on the clairvoyant. He could see passes before they were played. He could anticipate runs before they started. For Cottee, it was like playing against someone who knew the script. Every duel was a humiliation by intelligence. And here's the worst part. McGrath wasn't just smart. He was physical too. Determined, relentless. He won the PFA Player of the Season award. Aston Villa fans called him God. He's rated as one of the greatest centre-backs in Premier League history. But for Cottee, he was just the man who made him feel ordinary. In 1991, Everton faced Aston Villa. The match ended 2-0. But the real battle was in the centre. Cottee versus McGrath. Over and over. Direct, persistent. And every single time, McGrath was there first. Cottee's speed? Useless. His anticipation? Beaten. His confidence? Shattered. McGrath didn't need to be dirty. He didn't need to foul. He just needed to be smarter than Tony. And he always was. That's why Cottee named him the most difficult defender he ever faced. Because McGrath exposed the truth. Speed only works if you can think fast enough to use it. And against Paul McGrath, Tony Cottee couldn't. Des Walker stole Tony Cottee's identity. Let me explain. Cottee's entire game was built on one thing: pace. He was fast. Lightning fast. That acceleration over the first 5 yards was what separated him from everyone else. It was his trademark, his weapon, his reason for being on the pitch. Then he met Des Walker. Walker was faster. There's a famous chant, "You'll never beat Des Walker." It wasn't just a song, it was a prophecy. It was a warning to every striker in the country. And for Cottee, it was a death sentence. Walker had recovery pace that was unmatched. Timing that was perfect, tackling technique that was flawless. He was named in the PFA Team of the Year 4 seasons running. In early football games, he was given 20 tackling and 20 pace, maximum stats, because that's what he was. For Cottee, facing Walker was like running into a wall that could run faster than you. Every time Cottee tried to use his speed, Walker matched it. Every time Cottee thought he had half a yard, Walker was already level. Every time Cottee believed he could beat him in a race, Walker proved him wrong. And the emotional toll of that? It was crushing. Think about it. You spend your entire career being the fastest man on the pitch. That's your thing. That's what you're known for. That's what gets you paid. Then suddenly, it doesn't work anymore. Not because you've slowed down, but because someone else is just as fast. Maybe faster. That's not just a tactical problem. That's an identity crisis. Walker didn't just beat Cottee in duels. He erased what made Cottee special. He turned Cottee into just another striker. Average, ordinary, forgettable. And for someone like Tony, who already struggled with pressure and self-doubt, that was devastating. The chant was right. You'll never beat Des Walker. And Tony Cottee never did. That's why Walker made the list. Not because he fouled him, not because he hurt him, but because he stole the one thing Cottee relied on: his pace, his identity, his reason for being there. Martin Keown was a predator, not a defender. A predator. From the first whistle, he was on you, breathing down your neck, pushing, shoving, making sure you knew he was there. And he never stopped. For 90 minutes, there was no space, no peace, just Keown. Cottee described him as one of the very hardest markers he faced, and it's not hard to see why. Keown wasn't interested in playing football. He was interested in making your life hell. He was fierce, aggressive, relentless. He embodied the brutal Arsenal mentality of that era, the kind of defending that wasn't just about stopping goals. It was about breaking strikers, and Keown was very good at breaking strikers. There's a story about him that sums it all up. During a match, Alan Shearer caught him with a heavy elbow to the forehead. Blood everywhere. Most players would stay down. Most players would need treatment. Not Keown. He got up and immediately headed the ball. That's the kind of man Cottee was dealing with. Someone who could take more pain than he gave out. Someone who refused to be intimidated. Someone who thrived on conflict. For Cottee, who we know had a hot-headed temperament, facing Keown was torture. Because Keown knew exactly how to get under your skin. He'd push you, nudge you, talk to you, make you lose focus. And if you reacted, if you snapped, he'd won. Cottee's worst games probably happened with Keown on the pitch. Not because Keown was the most talented, but because he was the most uncompromising, the most psychological, the most willing to turn football into a war. There was no escape. Keown marked you everywhere. If you dropped deep, he followed. If you went wide, he followed. If you tried to hide, he found you. And the physical battles, brutal. Keown was strong in the air, tough in the tackle, unafraid of contact. He imposed himself on you from the first minute to the last. For someone like Cottee, who needed space and time to operate, Keown was a nightmare because he gave you neither. He suffocated you, crushed you, made you question why you even bothered trying. That's why he made the list. Because facing Martin Keown wasn't about football, it was about survival. Paul Parker was different. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the most physical. He wasn't the most aggressive. But he was the smartest. Parker was a tactical assassin. While other defenders tried to beat you with pace or power, Parker beat you with positioning, with discipline, with control. Cottee described him as one of the difficult opponents at the back. And the reason is simple. Parker didn't let you play your game. As a fullback or utility defender, Parker's job was to cut off the wide areas. And he was brilliant at it. Whenever Cottee drifted wide to escape the central congestion, Parker was already there, waiting, blocking the channel, forcing Cottee back inside. It was like being boxed in. Cottee's natural instinct was to use his pace in open areas, to get the ball in space and run at defenders. But Parker made sure there was no space. He positioned himself so perfectly that Cottee's options vanished before he could even touch the ball. And the mental toll of that? Huge. Imagine trying to find space for 90 minutes and never getting it. Imagine dropping wide, only to find your marker already there. Imagine trying every trick you know and none of them working. Not because you're being fouled, not because you're being outrun, but because someone has read the game better than you. That's what Parker did to Cottee. He didn't need to foul you, he didn't need to kick you, he just deleted your game plan. Parker played alongside Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister at Manchester United. He was part of a system that won titles, and his role in that system was to be disciplined, to never switch off, to always be in position. For Cottee, that meant there was no way out. If he went wide, Parker closed him down. If he stayed central, the big centre-backs dominated him. There was no winning. Parker forced Cottee into dead zones, areas of the pitch where he couldn't hurt you, where his pace didn't matter, where his finishing couldn't be used. And the worst part? Parker made it look easy. He didn't run around chasing shadows. He didn't dive into tackles. He just stood in the right place every single time. That's why he made the list. Because Parker didn't beat Cottee with athleticism. He beat him with intelligence. And there's no defence against that. Kevin Ratcliffe is the most complicated name on this list. Because Cottee didn't just face him as an opponent, he played with him as a teammate. Let me explain the irony. Before Cottee joined Everton, Ratcliffe was a hard opponent to play against. Tenacious, tough, a leader at the back, the kind of defender who made your life difficult for 90 minutes. So when Cottee signed for Everton in 1988 for a British record fee of £2.2 million, he said he was looking forward to having Ratcliffe on his side, playing with him instead of against him, having that quality in his own defence. But here's the thing, even as a teammate, Ratcliffe made Cottee's life difficult. The pressure Cottee felt about his record fee was enormous. He hated it. He openly admitted he didn't think he was good enough to be the most expensive player in British football. He said he was just a very good goal scorer, never a world-class player. That insecurity ate at him, and Ratcliffe knew it. Cottee recalled how Ratcliffe would joke about the fee. He'd say things like, "How much did we pay for you? Get in the dressing room." On the surface, it sounds like banter, harmless, just teammates messing around. But for Cottee, who was already drowning in self-doubt, it was another reminder, another jab, another reason to feel small. Even his own captain was using his biggest insecurity against him. That tells you everything about the culture Cottee was living in. The pressure wasn't just from opponents. It was everywhere, in the dressing room, in the media, in his own head. And if a respected teammate like Ratcliffe was making jokes about the fee, imagine what rival defenders were doing. Imagine the comments, the elbows, the whispers. Cottee's vulnerability wasn't a secret, and everyone exploited it. That's what makes Ratcliffe's inclusion so important, because it shows that the difficulty Cottee faced wasn't just on the pitch. It was psychological. It was constant. It was institutional. Ratcliffe was a fantastic player. He captained Everton. He won trophies. He was a leader. But for Cottee, even playing alongside him was a reminder of everything he wasn't. Strong, confident, unbothered by pressure. Ratcliffe didn't need to prove himself. He'd already done it. But Cottee? He was still trying, still fighting, still doubting. And that's why Ratcliffe made the list. Not because he hated Cottee, but because even as an ally, he represented everything Cottee struggled with. The mental strength, the leadership, the ability to handle pressure. Ratcliffe didn't just challenge Cottee's body, he challenged his mind. And maybe that was worse. So here we are, 5 defenders. 5 different ways to destroy a striker. McGrath outsmarted him. Walker outran him. Keown outfought him. Parker outthought him. Ratcliffe outlasted him. Together, they represent a complete breakdown. Speed, gone. Space, gone. Confidence, destroyed. These 5 defenders weren't just hard to face. They stripped Cottee of the tools that made him dangerous. They exploited every weakness, every doubt, every crack in his armour. And the thing is, Cottee never used the word hate. He called them difficult. He called them tough. He called them the hardest markers he faced. But maybe he didn't need to say hate. Maybe the fact that he still remembers them, still talks about them, still names them decades later, says enough. These men weren't just opponents. They were symbols. Symbols of everything Cottee feared. Physical pain, tactical exposure, the pressure of not being enough. And they beat him. Not every time. Not in every match. but enough times that the scars remained. Cottee was a brilliant striker. 226 league goals proves that. But even brilliant players have limits, and these 5 defenders were his. They didn't just stop him from scoring, they made him question whether he belonged, whether he was good enough, whether the record fee was justified, whether he was truly world-class or just very good. And for a player who already struggled with those questions, that was the ultimate defeat. So was it hate or just the scars of 5 careers lived inside one striker's nightmare? Maybe it doesn't matter, because the result was the same. 5 names, 5 nightmares, 5 defenders who proved that sometimes being difficult is worse than being hated. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you want more brutal truths from the pitch, hit that subscribe button, because we're not done exposing legends yet.